Located in central Ohio near New Philadelphia, the Age of Steam Roundhouse is one of America's premier railroad attractions. It was completed in 2010 and is the living dream of one man, Jerry Jacobson, former owner of the Ohio Central Railroad. The Roundhouse is home to over 20 steam locomotives and is one of the few museums in the country where visitors are allowed to see these beautiful machines up close. We'll go inside and look at several of the engines that make up the collection. This is the view that greets visitors when they enter through the middle of the Roundhouse. With the middle as our starting point, we'll work our way clockwise through the structure. Carnegie Steel 040 Saddle Tank No. 14 is the smallest and oldest locomotive in the collection. Built by H.K. Porter in 1897, it worked for several steel mills in the Pittsburgh area for many years. After sitting at Riverside Park in Sweckley, Pennsylvania for several decades, the engine was purchased by Age of Steam in 2013. Providing a stark contrast to No. 14 is Buffalo Creek and Gully 280 No. 13, one of the first big engines that Jerry acquired in his collection. Built in 1920 by the American Locomotive Company for the Kellys Creek and Northwestern, No. 13 is a direct copy of the Chesapeake and Ohio's G9 class consolidation-type engines. It moved to the Buffalo Creek and Gully in 1954 and ran there until the end of steam 10 years later. No. 13 then ran occasional excursions out of Logansport, Indiana for a few decades until Jerry Jacobson bought her in 1993. Next in the lineup are a couple of engines which came from the former Steamtown collection. No. 1293 is a G5 Class 462, built in June 1948 for the Canadian Pacific Railway by the Canadian Locomotive Company of Kingston, Ontario. After retirement in 1959, the engine was purchased by Steamtown founder F. Nelson Blount and moved to Vermont with two sister engines. It continued in operation for a few decades until being sidelined in the mid-1980s. Jerry acquired the engine in 1996, and it pulled many excursions on the Ohio Central for the next decade. Canadian National 460 No. 1551 was built by the Montreal Locomotive Works in 1912 and used mostly in branch line freight and passenger service. After spending its retirement in the Steamtown collection, the locomotive was traded to Jerry in 1988 for former Baldwin Locomotive Works shop switcher No. 26. The 1551 became a stalwart of excursion operations on the Ohio Central, running trains from Sugar Creek to Baltic and back from 1988 until the end of tourist train operations in 2003. Next to 1551 is No. 1278, another G5 Class 462 from the Canadian Pacific. She is only 2 months older than 1293, being built in April 1948 by the same manufacturer. When 1278 was acquired by Steamtown, she became F. Nelson Blount's pet locomotive and given a horizontal-style Alesco feedwater heater to replace the coil-style one she originally had. As an aside, 1293 retains this style of feedwater heater. The 1278 was traded to the Gettysburg Railroad in June 1987, as Steamtown needed more powerful engines for their excursion operations in Scranton, Pennsylvania. However, 1278's life on the Gettysburg would take a sorry turn in June 1995. Due to poor maintenance practices by the railroad, the locomotive suffered a crown sheet failure that severely injured the crew, but thankfully did not result in any fatalities. The story of this incident will be told in a future video, but as for 1278 herself, she was bought by Jerry Jacobson in 1998 and now enjoys a peaceful retirement in the Roundhouse. Lake Superior and Ishpeming 280 No. 33 is a larger consolidation-type engine built by Baldwin in 1916. It hauled trainloads of iron ore in Upper Michigan for several decades until being retired in the early 1960s. It was moved to the Hocking Valley Scenic Railway in 1968 and ran there until being laid up in the mid-1990s. Jerry traded some vintage diesels to the Hocking Valley in exchange for No. 33 and had it rebuilt to run in 2004. Last test fired in 2018, the locomotive is waiting for its turn in the museum's restoration shop. Another consolidation-type engine in the collection is U.S. Army S-160 No. 2630. It was one of over 2,000 such engines built during World War II to help the Allies rebuild their war-torn railways. However, 2630 did not see any overseas service. It was used as a training locomotive at the U.S. Army's Railroading School in Fort Eustis, Virginia. Renumbered to 612 in 1954, the engine kept working until the Army ended steam operations in 1972. Following a period of storage on the Cass Scenic Railroad in West Virginia, the engine was bought by Age of Steam in 2015 and restored to its 1943 appearance. Outside the roundhouse are an auxiliary tender, formerly used behind Frisco 482 No. 1522, and the tender for Bessemer and Lake Erie 210-4 No. 643. The 643 is awaiting clearance to be shipped to the Age of Steam Roundhouse from outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. When it arrives, it'll take its rightful place as the king of the collection. Parked on the other tracks around the turntable are several historic diesel locomotives which were used on the Ohio Central and kept by Jerry as part of the collection. Re-entering the roundhouse, we see a few small tender engines. Among them are McCloud River Railroad 262 No. 9, Moorhead and North Fork 060 No. 12, the only operating steam engine at the moment, and Reading Company 040 Camelback No. 1187. The 1187 was bought from the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania in 2020 and recently completed a cosmetic restoration. Entering the spacious restoration shop, we notice a few projects underway. From 2 Army boxcars being rebuilt to a complete overhaul of another steam locomotive in the collection. McCloud River Railroad 282 No. 19 is a favorite among rail fans. This 1915 Baldwin product, originally built to haul timber, became a movie star in 1973 when it was featured in Emperor of the North, starring Lee Marvin and Ernest Borgnine. After a storied second career of hauling tourists in Oregon and California, No. 19 was sold to Age of Steam in 2016. The locomotive is currently undergoing a 15-year inspection and a thorough rebuild for operation in the near future. The last 2 engines on the tour are the largest in the collection so far. Nickel Plate Road 284 No. 763 is one of 80 such Berkshires that the railroad relied on for fast freight service in the 1940s and 1950s. After spending most of its retirement at the Virginia Museum of Transportation in Roanoke, the 763 was moved to the Ohio Central in 2007. Although the engine has been cosmetically restored, there are no plans to return it to operation, especially as sister engine 765 is currently operational in Indiana. Last but not least is Grand Trunk Western 484 No. 6325. Built in 1942 by the American Locomotive Company, it worked in freight and passenger service until its retirement in 1959. It sat on display in Battle Creek, Michigan until being purchased in 1992 and moved to the Ohio Central Railroad shops in Morgan Run for restoration. Returning to steam in 2001, the 6325 ran several railfan excursions and photo specials until being sidelined with a hot driving axle bearing in 2005. It is still in excellent condition, and when the opportunity presents itself, the engine may return to service. Jerry Jacobson passed away in 2017 at the age of 74. But thanks to the volunteers and staff of the Age of Steam Roundhouse, his collection is preserved for all to enjoy. Now, you might be wondering why this video hasn't covered every locomotive in the collection. Well, it's because part of the joy of visiting the Roundhouse is discovering all these beautiful machines for yourself. The standard tour of the collection usually takes about 90 minutes, but special 3-hour-long tours are also available on select dates for rail fans who want an in-depth look at all the locomotives in the Roundhouse. To book your tour tickets, learn about special events, or even donate to help keep the collection accessible for all to see, you can visit www.ageofsteamroundhouse.org. The Roundhouse is also discoverable on several social media platforms. Their official YouTube channel is linked in the description. Until next time, this is Christopher Kovacs. Thank you all for watching, and keep on steaming!